And what this meant was this market was pretty much in its infancy. So there was no foothold that was like already really established in a completely new market. So just turning Scott away and then having him go to another bank and be a competitor was not something that they were exactly, too thrilled at the idea of. So something had to be done. What if the golden era of luxury travel cars was built on the subjugation and manipulation of a small startup company? What if I told you that due to this subjugation and manipulation, there will be several lawsuits, and ultimately this startup will be left a shell of itself and watching the success of others from the sidelines? Even more, what if it all came down to two of the most head-turning words in the luxury credit card world? Black card. To get you up to speed, let's take a look at an unlikely credit card. Today, luxury card is largely disregarded co-brand trio of cards issued by Barclays Bank and backed by MasterCard. These cards mostly receive heaps of criticism, some of which is deserved due to their overall unexciting perks, basic web page, and overemphasis on card construction and its odd branding. We'll definitely talk more on branding. My initial impression was X1 vibes, though I know these cards have been out much longer. Out of the trio, the card that started it all is the MasterCard Black Card, formerly known as the Visa Black Card, or just Black Card. And that's where our story begins. To understand how we got to luxury card, you first have to understand the significance of Black Card. And not just the name, but what it represents and what it represented, especially in an era where there was no premium credit card market and the Platinum card was pretty much the pinnacle of luxury travel cards. And this is before there was a Sapphire Preferred or Sapphire Reserve or any of those things. It actually started as a myth, a legend. It created its own existence. The Centurion card didn't precede the myth, it followed it. However, a guy by the name of Scott Blum had a vision to change all that, and in 2006, he brought his wild idea to a little company called JP Morgan Chase to make his dream a reality. So just so you all are aware, there is a lawsuit that pretty much serves as the source material for a lot of the stuff I bring up during this video. So just as a heads up, that's where a lot of this information comes from. Moving forward, Scott Blum was actually a holder of the Centurion card and the Platinum card. And while he did actually enjoy both those cards, he did see some areas where those cards needed some improvement. And thus that spawned his idea to create something completely different, an affluent credit card market. So Scott Blum actually wanted to do a few things with these credit cards. He saw the challenges, for one, that people had with the whole charge card concept. So people like him who maybe are starting a business and are putting lots of spend on these cards, maybe don't want to pay it off every month. So he wanted a regular card, so a regular credit card that wasn't a charge card, with a high limit, flexible payment schedule, luxury rewards, and a premium concierge that did a lot more than just, connect you to another shop, but actually helped you out with things. Go figure. So after coming up with his new luxury card idea and a couple of more of the details, Scott Blum did one of the most important things that he did throughout this whole story. He trademarked the term Black Card. And seems small, but trust me, it's pretty important moving forward. So now he takes this idea and he goes to JP Morgan Chase, and he already pretty much had a relationship with JP Morgan because this guy was an entrepreneur already and he had a co-branded card with Chase. So he approached him with this new idea and, pretty much wanted to have another co-branded card issued through Chase, similar to how Hyatt is partnered with Chase or Marriott or United or whatever. So he wanted another co-branded card with Chase. According to the lawsuit, Chase was very, very excited at the idea and really were looking forward to working with Scott Blum when he brought them this idea initially. But Scott signed the contract, and 6 months later after signing, for some reason Chase just didn't want to extend the hand out to complete the handshake, which Scott reasonably found pretty weird considering they had already had him agree to make sure that his card was going to be compatible with their Chase Pay, which is JP Morgan's payment network that they were coming up with, which this is actually a pretty important detail. Don't worry about it, but don't forget it. Conveniently, when they gave Scott the boot, they also informed that they would be coming up with their own affluent credit card, conveniently. So this was obviously kind of odd to Scott. However, now that he had the door pretty much slammed in his face, you have to keep in mind of the context of this era. So this is before X1s, before the Billy McFarlands and the McNeesis cards. There was no affluent credit card market. And what this meant was this market was pretty much in its infancy. So there was no foothold that was like already really established in a completely new market. So just turning Scott away and then having him go to another bank and be a competitor was not something that they were exactly, too thrilled at the idea of. So something had to be done. Now, at this point, I think it's best that I explain the relationship between credit cards and payment processors so you fully understand how things get that much worse for Scott after he decides to, not give up on his idea. To put it shortly, banks hold the money and credit, and payment processors like Visa and MasterCard make sure it moves around like it should. Banks need payment processors to handle transactions, and payment processors need banks to get consumers on their network through this banking relationship. Again, don't forget about Chase Pay. I know you forgot already. For the sake of this video, we're focusing squarely on Visa, the big boy. Visa issues cards, which essentially allow access into their payment network. These cards are issued to their customers, the banks, and banks then issue them to their customers, us, the consumers. Visa's customers we care about in this video are JP Morgan Chase, Barclays, and Capital One. Now with that relationship explained and that part of the story out of the way, let's keep the story moving forward. And with Chase pretty much slamming the door on Scott Blum, he did what any undeterred entrepreneur would do. He went to go ask for help from somebody else. And in 2008, he found himself partnering with Barclays. Sound familiar, right? Well, you would think that this means all his troubles are done. He's gotten rid of Chase and he can compete in this affluent credit card market that he kind of spurred the idea of creating in the first place. Except you have to really remember this whole relationship thing. So think of Visa as an umbrella. This is the payment network, the payment processor. Visa is an umbrella. But think of the banks as like gremlins, and they're all underneath Visa's umbrella. And if you're a 90s baby, you know gremlins don't need to get wet. Bad things happen when gremlins get wet. So Visa is the umbrella. Chase is a gremlin underneath the umbrella. Barclays, however, is also a gremlin underneath this umbrella. So while they're different entities entirely, they do, have a shared interest in Visa to some degree. So what this means is once Scott Blum went to Barclays and engaged in this partnership with them, they actually informed Visa like, hey, we've got this new guy, Scott Blum. He's got this crazy idea about creating an affluent credit card market. What do you think? And this by itself isn't too odd, except remember, things went left with Chase. Chase is also underneath this Visa umbrella. And if Visa is an umbrella, think of Chase as the stubby armed gremlin that's actually supporting this umbrella and keeping things upright. So, needless to say, Chase has a lot of clout with Visa, and by clout, I mean a lot of incentive for Visa to keep Chase happy. This is because during this period, not only was Chase issuing the most Visa credit cards, but they were also responsible for 10% of Visa's profits. So back to Scott. He's now with a new bank, but that bank is still underneath the Visa umbrella. Visa has to keep Chase happy because that's the breadwinner. So what does Visa do? They muzzle Scott. So Visa offered to create a marketing partnership with Scott in an effort to boost Visa's reputation as more of a luxury brand while also boosting Scott's, luxury card. Sounds good, right? Except what this actually did was lock Scott into a 5-year agreement with Visa, which by itself wouldn't be too bad, except one of the stipulations of this agreement was that Visa would be able to review all of Scott's marketing materials before it hit circulation, essentially allowing them to veto anything Scott did as far as marketing if Visa didn't feel like it aligned with their image or goals. Once in this kind of deal, what usually happens is a company like Visa would give Scott, let's say, hundreds of millions in, support of promotion and marketing and all that stuff to get this card out there and into the hands of as many people as possible. After all, the better Scott does, the more money Visa makes. So it should, in theory, be a pretty symbiotic and beneficial relationship. So instead of hundreds of millions, Visa actually gave Scott Blum $120,000 per year in support of this card. So a little shy of the hundreds of millions he would have normally gotten in a regular agreement like this. So it's no wonder when you look at the luxury card today, not only do so many people not know about this card, but when it launched, it actually only launched with 25,000 point sign-up bonus. Something that a real marketing budget would have alleviated both of those things. More people would have known, and it could have launched with better sign-up bonuses. Now that Visa had secured that muzzle on Scott, whether he knew it or not, now they could pretty much dictate and control all of his marketing materials using various tactics. One of the things they did was make sure that he couldn't or wouldn't use the marketing term Visa Black Card and instead just put Black Card on everything. The significance here is that for some reason, American Express never trademarked this term. And while that's okay, technically, it is the card that most people think of when they hear the phrase Black Card. So this obviously would cause some consumer confusion if they're seeing Black Card, maybe assuming it's from Amex or whatever. So Visa's hope was that American Express would basically catch wind of this and then push a lawsuit against Scott. Fortunately for Scott, he had already invested a good bit of money into the Visa Black Card branding, and because of the amount of money he had already spent into that branding, he was able to launch his card in December of 2008. That's right, the Visa Black Card came out in December of 2008, that long ago. Yeah, it's crazy. And I think it actually looked a lot better then than it does now. Also, in August of 2009, one now very popular card was also launched from JP Morgan Chase, the Chase Sapphire Preferred. Moving forward, and to no one's surprise, especially not Visa, Scott was sued by American Express in 2010 over the Black Card branding. Now, ultimately, he did end up losing this lawsuit, but he could still use the phrase Black Card, though with some stipulations, and pretty much use it as a licensee. This meant he did lose the trademark, but that also meant that Chase couldn't take the Black Card name from Scott if they managed to get him out of the business. Though the lawsuit didn't go that bad, by the time Scott emerged on the other side, it was a completely new credit card landscape. After all, the competition didn't exactly wait on him to finish his lawsuit before making moves of their own. And pretty much Scott lost his advantage as a first mover in the affluent credit card market that he helped create. So even though he didn't lose everything in the lawsuit with American Express, Visa still kind of won by slowing him down so much with that lawsuit. In 2012, a lot of bad things happened for Scott. Basically, a really powerful guy from Chase went to go be a powerful guy at Visa. Yeah, those kinds of moves happened and definitely didn't work out favorably for Scott, being pretty much under the thumb of both of those companies. But also, he tried to sell his Black Card brand because he was pretty much tired of the headache it was causing him. He tried to sell it to Capital One, which is another bank underneath the Visa umbrella. So what happens next is actually kind of wild. So Scott was supposed to sell his Black Card brand to Capital One for $150 million, and everything was pretty much going without a hitch. Except Capital One went and talked to their friend Visa. Yeah, that Visa. And Visa's bright idea to continue to keep Scott down pretty much was that they would give Capital One $150 million instead to develop their own card, the Capital One Venture Card. Now you might be thinking, isn't this also creating a competitor for the Chase card? Well, not exactly. You see, the Capital One Venture Card and the Sapphire Preferred aren't exactly competitors, and even if they are more so now, they definitely weren't then. They were completely different, targets as far as, clientele. And so in August of 2013, Capital One officially backed out of the agreement that they had with Scott to buy his company. Scott, still resilient as ever, brushed off his shoulders and continued to move forward and actually started work on the design for one of the first metal credit cards ever. You see, Scott was one of the first people to see the appeal in creating an aesthetically pleasing and high quality credit card that, has pretty much become the norm of having a a premium credit card of today. Keep in mind that Scott was still locked into that 5-year agreement that he had signed with Visa. So over the next several years, he pretty much goes through a yo-yo of rejection and name nitpicking from Visa, especially when he came up with this idea for the next 2 cards that he wanted to add to his brand, the Visa Gold card and the Visa Platinum card. And they kept picking with the name, having issues with this part and that part. And so this is ultimately where we end up with the very weirdly named luxury car brand that rightfully so gets a lot of criticism today. Scott was eventually able to get from underneath the thumb of Visa, and he made the switch from Visa to MasterCard. Again, evidence of what we see today. And what was supposed to be a launch of his 2 new cards in 2014 ended up being delayed all the way to 2016. That's right, 2 years of not being able to compete in the exact credit card landscape that he helped spark the creation of. Marketing for the widely popular Chase Sapphire Reserve actually started during this time, and it was set to be launched in 2016. Making the switch from Visa to MasterCard was very costly to Scott in both time, money, and market share, and doing this switch cost him 10% of his customer base alone. And what we have left today is Luxury Card, issued by MasterCard, a largely unknown trio of metal credit cards with some uninspiring perks, uninspiring branding, and largely unremarkable. I initially started looking into black cards just to see if there were any redeeming qualities for the cards, or if I just have to resort to making another unfavorable review of the brand. But then I searched for the founder, and that's when I learned the history. One interesting thing is that the lawsuit notes that because of Visa's actions, they effectively kept the marketplace less competitive and incentivized Chase to not have to compete with many others. One reference was how the Sapphire Preferred has actually gotten worse over time. After looking into it, I learned that early on, you used to get an annual 7% dividend for all the points you earned on the Preferred that year. It also reminded me of how frustrating the 524 rule is and how Chase uses it to lock people in through restriction instead of innovation. There's also the looming return of Chase Pay, which, if launched in 2023 when that agreement ends, could sever the tie between Visa and Chase, but I think they're too intertwined for it to happen, honestly. I think this story needs to be heard because it's the dark but important origin of the luxury credit card market. Scott Blum came to Chase with this idea in 2006. The Sapphire Preferred was released in 2009. The City Prestige came out in 2013, and the Sapphire Reserve didn't come out until 2016. And the US Bank Altitude Reserve followed in 2017. All the while, Scott Blum was struggling for a foothold in the market. Now, I don't expect anybody to boycott these banks or Visa, or this isn't a let's tear down the establishment video or anything crazy like that. But I do think it's important for us in this credit card, landscape or market or whatever, to kind of know the origins and know what really happened behind the scenes, because I don't think Scott Blum's story is ever going to be told. And if this video doesn't get a whole bunch of views, most people probably are never going to know it. So just trying to do my part and, putting the writing on the wall for the history books. And yeah, that's the video. If you did appreciate this video, if you found the story interesting, if you found this video interesting, I definitely appreciate a like. And if you want to be sure to catch more content just like this in the future, go ahead and subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell so you're notified when I do upload. And as always, the only thing more valuable than your points is your money, and the only thing more valuable than your money is your time. Until next time.